Welcome, and thank you for joining me for another fucking random gaming news, where today I have a few quick mentions I wanted to throw at you guys, plus we're going to be talking about that Xbox Live event that's happening next Thursday, and going over the Final Fantasy VII franchise and what exactly that remake is going to entail for the next few games that come out in that series, plus a whole lot more. So make sure you guys are actually checking out the links in the description for that social media stuff, because over on Twitter and Instagram I get news and my opinion about things that I don't otherwise get here on the channel. Also hit the like button if you guys are, do enjoy today's video. Share the video to help out the channel the most. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, and I know this shirt is going crazy, but let's go ahead and start the show. So first up, we have Fallout 76 in the news here, and this time actually for good reason, because we had an AMA where a bunch of questions were asked, and a blog post was posted with a bunch of those questions, one of them being, will we see story DLC in the future around the Enclave and or the Brotherhood of Steel, to which Bethesda actually answered, let's just say the Brotherhood is now watching the wasteland of West Virginia very closely. So that's very interesting to me, because I thought that the Fallout 76 game, and I looked it up, it is 25 years after the bombs dropped, and I thought the Brotherhood of Steel happened like 200 years after, like 100 years, something like that. I don't know, you have to let me know in the comments below exactly when the Brotherhood of Steel stuff happens there, but it is interesting to see that we might be getting something that was from Fallout 3 brought into this game, and it'd be nice to see how they're going to incorporate all of that. So moving right along here, we have Rockstar in the news, because they're giving away $500,000 to any and everybody that logs into the GTA Online service this month. So $500,000 sounds like a lot of scratch, but it really isn't that much money, and you really, looking at the vehicles and how much those actually cost, $500,000 isn't a whole lot, but there is one thing that you can buy that's pretty interesting this month, which is a full body alien suit that's either green or purple that you're seeing here on the screen, and if you buy the suit, it legally allows you to beat up anybody else of the opposite color in the same suit. So it's pretty interesting to see that they're added things like this where you can actually start one of the weirdest and coolest gang wars in video game history. Lastly, let's talk about Escape from Tarkov. I've seen, some good stuff come from them. They have a very realistic game where you're playing through a lot of the ricochets, and the sounds are pretty awesome, and they've now made a Mandalorian inspired helmet that will be coming to the game soon. And you might be asking, well, that's not very realistic, but it's actually based off of this company that made this right here that you're seeing, and they're called the Galactic Tech. They made a lot of cool cosplay stuff and all, things along those lines. I strongly suggest you go check them out. There will be a link in the description. I just like looking over it. I didn't buy anything, but you might actually want to get something. Now, we've got some very exciting news coming out of Microsoft this week, because we are actually getting a live event where we will be seeing for the first time some gameplay coming from the Xbox Series X. Now, and one of the things that happened this past week on Thursday, which I didn't mention because I was going to mention it here, is that Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out with a live stream one day that was about 8 to 10 hours long that made the actual poster that said that they were going to show off some cinematic trailer the next day, and we got some awesome cinematic trailer of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and a lot of that advertisement seemed to be around the Xbox Series X, and seeing that they said they will be showing off some gameplay next week, we can safe to assume that we're definitely going to be seeing Assassin's Creed Valhalla during this live event. Another couple of things that we may see but may not because of some of the other news that we'll get to in just a moment is Halo Infinite. That is a possibility of still showing up, because that's one of their big titles that they want to launch with their console, or Hellblade 2, which seemed to be a breakout success the year that it was released a couple years ago. Now, the thing with all of this to keep in mind, though, is that Phil Spencer also did an interview with CNBC that went over some of the things for the launch of the console this holiday season, and one of the things that he notably said was, overall, I think we're in line with where we thought we would be. I'd say the bigger unknown is probably the game production. Game production is a large-scale entertainment activity now, and you have hundreds of people coming together to build assets and working through creative. And it's one of those things that I just really think that is going to play a big factor in what we actually see in this live event, because they are saying that the game production side of things is going to be delayed, but the actual launch of the console is still set to be scheduled, so we may not actually get to see some of those things like the Halo Infinite or Hellblade 2 or anything along those lines, and we may be focused more on the third-party people that are coming and going to be launching right alongside those consoles, like maybe Cyberpunk 2077 or this Assassin's Creed Valhalla game. So it's very interesting to kind of think about, and I'd love to know what you guys think about all of this down in those comments below. So recently we got a translation of the Final Fantasy VII Remake Ultimania book that shows us just a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that is going on with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and there's two parts of this that we're actually going to be talking about. The first one is going to be quite spoilery, so go to this timestamp here, and that will get you past it. Alright, now that you guys have moved on, and some that haven't, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII if you have completed it here, because we got a translation on what the actual story is going to be like going forward for some of the other stuff. So Twitter user Audrey actually sent out a tweet, and I'm going to butcher some of these names when going through this tweet here, but quote by Katzy on how different the Final Fantasy VII Remake will be from the original story. We're not drastically changing this story and making it into something completely different than the original. Even though it's a remake, please assume the story of Final Fantasy VII will continue as Final Fantasy VII always has. So that just kind of seems like the story in and of itself is going to give us a little bit of of the same stuff that we're used to, although there were some very interesting things that happened in the remake that was recently released, because like I said, spoiler alert, Zack was one of the people that was rescued by those fate ghosts that kind of, pushed you in the right direction to keep the story moving along the way that it was, because it does kind of seem like Cloud is reliving something that he already previously lived, or he's a different Cloud than our original Cloud that is showing us something that may happen, or something that they can change because they realize that a different universe had these same problems, so they're going through to change it a little bit differently. I know that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but you'd have to play through the game for that to really make a whole lot of sense. So, if you haven't done that, go ahead and do that, and that just means that you got spoiled the crap out of. I left some of it out, but essentially, Cloud fights a god at the end of it because these ghosts are riding around doing certain things that make it to where you have to be pushed into the right direction of completing the Final Fantasy story of the way that it originally was, and stopping Sephiroth from bringing Meteor to the planet to destroy it. So, it's kind of hard to say because, like I said, it seems like the story in and of itself that they're trying to tell is Cloud reliving something that he's already lived through, but having to do it the correct way to make this thing not happen. So we'll have to get some more of that bit in the next part, because the next thing that I wanted to talk about from this Ultimanium book was that they are actually going to be bringing out probably quicker games or quicker, sequels to the Final Fantasy VII Remake, because they were talking about how this game, they loved it, it was great, and it was, kind of a long process and took them a long time to make, so they really want to kind of hone in and streamline that concept so that way they can produce games a little bit faster. So they want to make smaller, more detailed chunks of games to release, so that way it makes it easier for them to tell the story that they're trying to tell and get games out faster so people aren't having to wait like they did for this Final Fantasy VII Remake just to get the first episode essentially of it. So I don't know necessarily, because I didn't think they were going to be able to get more than like 1 or 2 more games out of it, just because if they're now going to be retelling Final Fantasy VII, there is a lot more. You can probably get 2 or 3 more games out of it there. But if they do it in smaller chunks like that, they can give us a lot more content, like say going to the Golden Saucer, for example. That is going to give you a lot of content just to play in that little area to get Catsit and all those other people that you can get inside of there. Or how about when you're going to the mansion to actually get Vincent, rather than that whole storyline of how he became Vincent being its own game like it was back in the day, we can incorporate how he became actually in there a little bit more detailed rather than they did in the first game. Just kind of alluded to how he got in there. So I would love to see, them do this kind of thing, because it is very interesting to think about that, they're going to be releasing smaller chunks of games, and I'd love to hear from you guys down in those comments below on what you think about those smaller chunks. Do you like getting smaller detailed chunks, or did you like the actual game that we got here, where it kind of went over a few things and gave us a lot bigger detail in this one particular area? I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but let me know your thoughts down in those comments below. So recently, the Battle for Scarif came out for the Battlefront franchise. That left a lot of people thinking, well, when is the actual, Battlefront 3 coming out, or anything along those lines? Because even back in the day, we only got Battlefront 1 and 2 before they stopped making the series, and now we only got Battlefront 1 and 2, and it would seem that we're not getting any more titles in this actual series, because DICE actually put out a statement with somebody saying, right now there are no plans for a Battlefront 3. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, and here we are. Enjoy the Battle for Scarif update. share some kind messages with the team at DICE who worked ever so hard on a Battlefront 2, and may the force be with you. And now with May 4th coming up and a lot of people wanting some other content or other games coming out of the Star Wars franchise, I think that's perfectly okay with leaving the Battlefront series as more of a live service style game, just because I feel like a lot of those, first person shooters or shooter games like Destiny or Call of Duty or anything along those lines, I don't think we need a mainline game coming out year after year. I think it would be more beneficial if they did it more of a live service where they released actual expansions that came out with the game year after year, like a big drop every year like Destiny does. They do a really big drop, you buy the deluxe edition, and you can get the rest of the stuff that they put out for the rest of the year. And I really think that that is a better business model for the Battlefront series, not all of the Star Wars games in general, just the Battlefront series, just so that way we can get more content into the shooter. Because really, what are you adding to the game when you do get a sequel or anything along those lines? I know they give improved mechanics and things along those lines, but why can't you patch that into the game? I don't know. That's just my thought on it. I know there's actually 2 games in the work. One that we actually got an announcement for, which was the Pod Racer game that's coming out sometime this year. And another one, which is that Project Maverick that I reported on earlier this year, that we haven't heard a whole lot of information on other than that picture that was released by the PSN network. So I don't know necessarily what is intel for the next Star Wars game, but leaving Battlefront 2 as a live service game isn't necessarily a bad thing, because then they can focus DICE on maybe making Bad Company, Battlefield Bad Company. That would be pretty cool. Bad Company 3, I'd like to see that. Or, opening it up, because I know that Respawn is working on a sequel for the Fallen Order game, but now that leaves, some of their other studios to make different games that they may not otherwise have made, because they're focused on making a third Battlefront game. I don't know, that's just my thoughts and opinions on it, but I'd love to hear from you guys down in those comments below on it here. Well, that's our video for today. I hope you guys did enjoy it, and if you did, go ahead and hit that like button. Let me know that you did. There are actual links in the description to all the news articles I talk about, plus that social media stuff where you can get other news I don't necessarily get here on the channel, plus my opinion, so go ahead and check those out. Also, share this video to help out the channel the most. I do appreciate anybody that does. It's very awesome of you, and thank you if you do hit the subscribe button and hit that bell icon turned on, because you're just going to get more content just like this in your news feed. And as always, I have been Tasty, this has been Random Gaming News, and have a wonderful fucking gaming night.